You've got your seeds laid out, and it's time to decide which ones to start. The first group of plants that you've got to get started now are your nightshades, your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplant. For most of us, direct sowing really isn't possible if we want to have a bountiful harvest of tomatoes and peppers. Because they're tropical plants, they really cannot handle the cold. So get them started indoors now so you can transplant them outside after last frost. Now, it's not just enough to say, yeah, tomatoes and peppers. What types of tomatoes? What types of peppers? Well, obviously, it's going to depend on your taste. It's also going to depend on the space that you have available. If you have the space, I would say give yourself a good balance of both indeterminate and determinate tomatoes. Think about it as vining and non-vining. The ones that will continue to grow all the way throughout the season versus the ones that are going to have a flush or two of fruit and then be done for the year. Your slicing tomatoes, like this Cherokee Purple, these are indeterminate tomatoes. These will vine. These need to be trellised or staked unless you want them to spread across the ground, which you typically don't want to do. You don't want the fruit touching the ground. Once you get these in the ground, they're going to continue to grow and spread and fruit until the cold knocks them back in the fall. Now, your determinate tomatoes, those are often your sauce tomatoes, like Italian Romas. I grow Italian Romas every year, and I grow a lot of them. I love to cook them down into sauce, pop that sauce into the freezer, and then I can enjoy my tomato harvest throughout the cold winter months. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more container friendly, consider a dwarf tomato variety, or grow cherry and grape tomatoes. A lot of those do really well in containers, even hanging baskets. Most of those are still the vining, indeterminate type varieties, but you can get a good handle on them if you put them into a container. And you don't have huge fruit, you just have a lot of it. Now, as far as peppers go, I always like to plan out the different types of peppers based on how I'm going to eat them. So I'll always make sure that I'm growing some sweet bell peppers. These are great in salads. These are great just to even eat as a snack. Get these started now, and you'll be enjoying them come summertime. And for a little bit of a kick, start your chilies now. These Black Magic jalapeno peppers are going to fit in really nicely in my salsa garden. There's another type of pepper that I've really fallen in love with and I'm super excited to grow. I call them salad peppers. They could also be pickling peppers, but these are the little tiny guys. These are the ones that grow in a bush and they just explode with fruit. These are called biquinho peppers. Biquinho peppers, it means little beak because of the way that they look. These tiny peppers are the perfect combination of just a little bit of heat, a nice smoky flavor, and rich fruitiness. Another member of the nightshade family that, I'll be honest, I'm not really that big of a fan of, but because I've never grown it, I'm going to try it out and I'm going to see how I like it, are eggplant. I'm going to grow eggplant this year just to see how it does. These are related to tomatoes and peppers. By all accounts, I should really enjoy eggplant. I should enjoy the texture and the flavor that comes with them. I've just never really been a fan, but I haven't grown them before. And what I'm always encouraging myself to do, and I'll encourage you to do as gardeners, is to experiment with new things. Try stuff out. And if I end up not liking it, the worst thing that can happen is I can make some friends with my neighbors. I can share these across the fence, and then I just won't grow them again next year. The last nightshade that I'm starting right now are tomatillos. Tomatillos grow vigorously, and you'll be harvesting these all the way up until the cold hits. Combine these with some of your hot peppers, onion, and cilantro, and you'll have a delicious salsa verde. The next family of veg that you should be planting right now are your Umbellifers. They're called this because of the way that their flower arranges, but think things like carrot, celery, dill, and cilantro. I'm going to be starting my cilantro inside because it's still a little bit too cold for me right now to put these outdoors. But I'm going to be able to get these to grow very quickly and then transfer them outside because they are cool season plants. So within just a few weeks of last frost, I'll be transplanting these and I'll be able to harvest. I'll also be able to, because this is a bolt-resistant variety, I will be able to include this as part of my salsa garden. Because remember, the things that I'm growing in my salsa garden are primarily nightshades. They're summer vegetables. They're vegetables that are going to need a little bit of heat. This type of cilantro isn't going to bolt readily, which is fantastic because it means I can continue to grow it through the season so I can harvest it alongside of my tomatoes and peppers and tomatillos so I can make delicious salsa. a classic umbellifer that you should be starting right now outside if your soil is workable, but you can even start indoors if you're super careful when transplanting, are your carrots. These Scarlet Nantes carrots, I'm super excited to get these growing. I haven't tried this variety before, but I've heard really great things. I'm going to start them inside, but I'm going to actually just broadcast them over a tray. I'm not going to put them into individual cells. So then what I can do when transplanting, instead of risking harming the roots, which remember, these are carrots, that's what we're going to end up eating, I can just pop the bottom out of the tray, and then I can plant the entire tray of carrots into my selected location. And the next family of plants that I'm starting right now, and I recommend you do too, is the mint family. I'm really excited about growing spearmint and peppermint this year. I'm going to start a little bit of a tea garden and see how that goes. But I'm going to keep my spearmint and my peppermint in containers. Why? Because these roots grow vigorously. Mint can actually be highly invasive in your garden. I would not recommend putting them straight into the ground or putting them into one of your raised beds. If left to their own devices, these will spread like wildfire. So keep control of them. Start them inside in a pot. Pot them up into a container outside. Make sure that they are not given the chance to spread in your garden. They really will be a pain for you to get rid of later. And the next member of the mint family that I'm starting right now inside is basil. This Prospera basil is something that I'm really looking forward to. I love growing herbs. Largely what I do is I just take cuttings from my kitchen scraps, and that's how I grow my herbs. But I'm going to start these from seed because this is a variety that intrigued me. So again, it's one of those things that I just want to try, so I'm going to try it, and I bet it's going to be delicious. The next plant family to get started right now is your Aster family. Those are your lettuces. I'm growing head lettuce, leaf lettuce, and a mesclun mix this year. Head lettuce, like this Bib butterhead lettuce, is great in that it grows into a nice compact form. You let it grow completely, you cut off the head, or you pull out the entire plant, you bring it inside, and you eat it. Think about head lettuce as your romaine and iceberg varieties. Now, one of the things that I love about leaf lettuce, and I'm looking forward to with this Merlot variety, is it's what's called cut and come again. So I can sow this lettuce and I can let it grow outside, and as I need it, I can go out and I can cut the outer leaves and let the plant continue to grow. That means I'll get more harvest. I can go out to my garden, grab a salad and bring it inside, and then I can still have more salad for later. And I love making my salad straight from the garden. Speaking of salad, I'm going to do a mesclun mix. Mesclun mix is exactly what it sounds like. It's a mixture of a variety of leaf lettuces. It's also cut and come again, but you're getting a bunch of different varieties. So think about the spring mixes that you can get at the grocery store. You can grow that in your garden if you start it today. Another member of the Aster family that I was actually surprised to find out was related to lettuce is artichoke. And I'm growing artichoke this year. Artichoke can be perennial based on the zones that you're in. Because I'm in 5B, I'm going to have to grow artichoke as an annual, but that's okay. I love artichoke and I'm super excited to grow it. One of the things to know when you start your artichoke is that it needs about 10 days of temperatures between 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. It needs that in order to bud. And because what you're eating on artichoke actually are the immature flowers of the artichoke plant, you need those buds. Each plant of this Tavor artichoke is going to produce between 7 and 8 buds. But I have to make sure that I time things right if I want to harvest some artichoke. So I'm going to start these indoors, and then I'm going to take them outside and start to harden them off in a little bit cooler weather, making sure that they get those temperature dips below 50 degrees so the buds will start to form and I can harvest my artichoke this summer. The next plant family to get started right now are your cruciferous vegetables, your brassicas. Think about it as your cabbages, your broccoli, your cauliflower. Depending on where you are, if you have workable soil right now, you can go outside and you can direct sow your brassicas. I have to start them indoors, and that's totally fine because they catch up really nicely once they get transplanted outside. So from a brassica standpoint, what am I going to be growing? Well, I'm going to grow a few different types of broccoli. There are early, mid, and late varieties of broccoli. This Diciccio broccoli right here, I love this variety. Reason being, you can actually harvest this within about 50 days, And then once you harvest the head, side shoots begin to form, and you can harvest those. It's an early variety that actually has an extended harvest. You can also do succession planting with a variety like this or calabrese because of the accelerated harvest timing. I'll also grow some cauliflower. Cauliflower is great. It can be a little bit finicky. So one of the things that I would recommend is actually getting a variety of cauliflower that's what's called self-blanching. The reason cauliflower stays white is because the leaves, as it grows, they can cover the head of the cauliflower. And because the head has no exposure to sun, it doesn't green up. What you have to do with some varieties is you have to help it out. We call this blanching. And one of the potential challenges that comes with certain varieties of cauliflower is that you, the gardener, actually have to help them blanch by covering up the heads with the leaves. So you actually get to a certain point in the life cycle of the cauliflower where you go out there and you tie the leaves around the head to block out the sun. Self-blanching varieties, they do it themselves. So it cuts out a little bit of the extra effort and you're harvesting some delicious cauliflower at the end of the day. And then as we get into the cabbages, I'm going to grow head cabbage, I'm going to grow baby cabbage, and I'm going to grow Napa cabbage. Head cabbage, I've got this capture variety. And this capture variety, it's exactly what you think of when you think of green cabbage. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm just going to be able to start this indoors, transplant it outside, let it grow, and then once the head is ready to be harvested, I'm ready for my cabbage. Napa cabbage is a head variety, but it's more vertical in nature. It's used in a lot of Asian cuisine, and we love it around this household. So I'm going to continue to grow my Napa cabbage, and I'm super excited to keep that as part of my garden. One of the things that I love is baby cabbage. So what I'm talking about here primarily is stuff like bok choy and harvesting that before it matures. So you can grow bok choy and you can let it mature all the way to where it's a little bit more like a head variety, like a Napa cabbage. What I do is I grow my bok choy and I don't let it mature all the way, and I harvest it as a baby variety. So instead of waiting until the plant is fully mature and then removing the entire plant or cutting the head off and bringing it inside, I'll actually harvest them while they're still young and tender. One of the great things that I love about bok choy as well is that they, just like some lettuces that we talked about, they're a cut and come again variety. So you can actually cut the outer leaves of your bok choy off of your bok choy plant, and your bok choy will continue to grow in the ground until you fully harvest the plant. It's a great way to extend your harvest, and I highly recommend it. For the first time this year, I'm also going to give Brussels sprouts a shot. I love Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts are absolutely delicious, but I've never grown them before, so I'm going to give them a shot. I'll need to start them indoors because they're going to take 100 days to reach maturity once they're planted in the ground. So I'll start these inside, and then once I can get them into the ground, I'll transplant them outside, and I'll have Brussels sprouts later this summer. A staple for most gardeners is radishes. Did you know that radishes are part of the Brassica family? Yes, even though these are root vegetables, they are related to broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. Get your radishes in the ground as soon as the soil is workable, and continue succession planting every single week. Because radish grows so quickly, you can grow them indoors. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Just wait until your soil is workable. For most of us, that's only another couple or few weeks. Then you can get your radishes in, and 25 days later, you'll be harvesting. Also, did you know that arugula is part of the Brassica family as well? I'm really excited to grow arugula and mix it into my salads. It's going to add a nice, spicy zip. The next plant family to start right now is your allium family. Think about that as your onions and your garlic. Now, many of us may have already started our garlic in the fall and let it overwinter. So we're just about to get to where we can see these garlic greens start growing again. And if you have a hardneck variety, you're going to have garlic scapes in no time. But if you didn't plant your garlic in October, it doesn't mean all hope is lost. If you could work your soil now, you can get your garlic in the ground and you can still harvest later this summer. Now, maybe the bulbs won't be as big, but you can still grow your garlic. You probably only want to spring plant your garlic if you live in a mild or warmer climate, because if you're in too cold of a climate, you're not going to give your garlic much of a chance to grow, And if you start it in the late winter and it actually starts to emerge, it can harm the plant because the roots won't be very well established. There won't be enough strength to the plant, and the cold can really harm it. So for those of us in cold weather climates, you're not starting your garlic right now. But if you're in a milder climate, you totally can, and you probably should. Alliums that I'm starting right now are my Leeks, my Scallions, and my Chives. I have two varieties of Leeks that I'm super excited to grow. The Lancelot Leeks are the ones that I'm going to use as my traditional Leeks. I'm going to use these in soup. I'm going to saute these. I'm going to eat them. They're more substantial than the Alto Leeks. The Alto Leeks are almost a little bit Scallion-like. They're obviously bigger, but you can actually eat younger Alto Leeks raw and not have to worry about it too much. It has a nice, delicious leek flavor, and you can actually harvest it about 15 to 20 days before your Lancelot leeks are going to be ready. And then one of the things that I love about Chives and Scallions is that they're perennial. These will overwinter. So if you get these started today and then you get them transplanted into your garden, they will continue to grow year after year. And then you can control how many chives and how many scallions you have in your garden. Watch that you don't let them spread too much. They will self-seed pretty readily, so they'll start to naturalize in your garden if you're not too careful. But all you have to do to combat that is just, when they flower, cut off the flower stalks. That way they're not developing the seeds. And then, as long as you have them under control, you can divide them, the same way that you would divide your ornamental allium outside. Except these you eat, and they're absolutely delicious, and I'm looking forward to growing these for years to come. The next plant family to get started now are your Chenopods. That's your Swiss chard, spinach, and beets. Swiss chard is great. It's a cool weather crop that you actually could grow in some partial shade. So if you have some areas in the garden that don't get full sun, think about growing some chard. Chard also grows nice and quickly. It's about 50 to 60 days to harvest, which is really nice because you can start to harvest earlier. And it's always nice to add things to your garden that you can harvest a little bit earlier. So you're not just sitting around and waiting until midsummer before you can benefit from your garden. Another great cool season chenopod is spinach. And spinach grows even more quickly than chard. You'll be able to harvest your baby spinach leaves within 30 days. If you want to grow full-size adult spinach, that'll take about double the time. Call it 60 days. But spinach is great. It's another cut-and-come-again variety. And notice the theme here. A lot of the things that I choose to grow in my garden are things that I can continue to benefit from regularly. I'm not just growing something once, pulling up the plant, and now I have to start something fresh. No, I'm finding varieties that can give me more bang for the buck. I'm planting vegetables that actually benefit from being partially harvested. So then I can come back and I can harvest even more. And that's the great thing about gardening, is figuring out what works for you and how best to maximize your harvest. Another staple chenopod that I'm going to be growing in my garden is beets. And I'm going to grow several varieties of beets. I absolutely love beets. I love the roots. I love the greens. I love everything about them. Beets are another one of those cool season plants, like carrots, that you're often told not to grow indoors, and you have to wait so you can sow them outside. But that's not true. All you have to do is be careful. So I'm going to start my beets inside so I can get a jump on the growing season. And then as I'm transplanting those outside, I'm going to direct sow more beets into the ground next to them. That way, I'll have a continual harvest of beets until it gets too hot for them to grow. And the final plant family that you should get started now are your legumes, specifically peas. Peas are cool season crops that will grow super quickly in your garden. If you already have workable soil, direct sow these now. If it's still a little bit too cool where you are, you can start these indoors. Again, just be careful with transplanting. But as long as you're careful, you're not going to hurt these peas and you're not going to hurt the yield. So get them started now and enjoy your peas sooner. All right, so it seems like a pretty big list, and it seems like we have a lot of things that we need to start doing, but that's okay. Get excited. Spring is coming. Happy growing.